And oh yeah, it is recording. So this session is being recorded, everybody. So by attending the meeting, you consent to being included, if that's all right. Just letting you know that. We've got two guests with us tonight who have started product-based businesses, and I'm really thrilled to welcome Holly Ramsey, who's got a business called The Neighbourhood Threat, and Charlotte Lowther, who's got a business called Charlie's Wooden Crafts Limited. And I really would encourage you to give your questions in the chat. Questions in the chat, please. In the chat, please. It would be brilliant that some questions come from the audience as well. But for now, I'm just going to kick off the session, if that's all right. And I'm going to kick off the session by asking Holly and Charlotte. Holly, I'll come to you first, just to introduce your business, when you started it and why you started it. So just give us a bit of background about that, if that's all right.
Yeah, so I run a business called Neighbourhood Threat based in Manchester. So I'm a fabric designer, so design prints for like homewares and textiles. It's like cushions and lampshades and wall art and oven gloves and all sorts. We sell it online on market stalls. Got a lot of stockists. We've got our own shop as well in Sale in Manchester. But yeah, so we opened the shop last year. We've been going since about 2019, that kind of style.
2019, that's brilliant. Okay. And Charlotte, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your business, when you started it and why you started it.
Hi, my business is Charlie's Wooden Crafts Limited. We started our business in about 2020. We've been limited for a year. I started my business when I got made redundant from COVID from my current job. So I purchased a mobile sawmill with my dad to mill our own wood, to develop different products, and it's just kind of grown since then. I now have a laser, a CNC, so I can make all different types of bespoke products. I've got a website and I also sell at markets, country fairs, things like that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So this workshop's called How I Started a Product-Based Business. So let's hear about the products that you either make and sell, or buy and sell. So Charlotte, what about you? Tell us about your product range and which ones you create, or do you buy any in as well? Give us a picture of that.
So I do like dog lead hooks, wooden dog lead hooks with personalised names, dog feeders, like little key rings to keep it on the cheaper side. I do them at £3.50, which gives a price range for my items. Recycled teapot bird feeders that all come from charity shops. What else?
I've just put your products in the chat, actually, Charlotte. So how did you come to that range? Can you give us a flavour of how that range evolved, or what was your first product that you either made or bought and sold?
Wooden Christmas reindeers, log reindeers with like carved faces was my first product. And then it took off, so I did snowmen, and then it's kind of developed from there. We purchased the sawmill, and then on from that I've got the lasers, which has allowed me to do like bespoke, personalised. So I do quite a lot for weddings, signs for people's gardens. I do a lot of just one-off products just for people that message me, can you do such and such? And
oh, that's amazing. And what was it that inspired that first product, Charlotte? Like, just tell us about from idea to, creating that first product, that reindeer, did you say?
Yeah, so a lot of trial and error. Your first cut isn't actually how the end product's going to look. We made them with like log eyes to start with, and then we redeveloped them to have like, I don't know if you know, like teddy bear glass eyes that they sew into teddy bears. We changed them to have them as they've got more of a personality. Just trial and error, people's reactions. We do them with like stick antlers or Christmas tree antlers, and like different people's reactions to the different ones.
That's
so
brilliant.
It really is just trial and error and seeing what your customer base likes the best.
And Holly, what about you? Tell us about your product range, and what was your first product that you made or bought and sold?
So the main part of the business is cushions, which we make ourselves in the studio. We make tea towels, we make lampshades, we make coasters, we make prints, oven gloves, bags, little makeup bags, candles, mugs.
And what was it? So was the first product cushions, Holly, and what was it that inspired you? How did that come to be your first product?
So I think we first made cushions about like start of 2019. But I used vintage fabric back then. So I used to sell vintage clothes like when I was in uni and college and all that. And then I used to be able to source all this lovely vintage fabric. So then I started making that into cushions. And then from there, it kind of developed into me designing the fabric myself. And now it's like what I do.
Okay. And we've got a question coming from Kimberly. So Kimberly, thank you so much for kicking off the questions. And it will be brilliant to get more questions from people who've joined us. But Kimberly is asking, how did you go about sourcing your raw materials? So Charlotte, for your first product, your reindeers, how did you go about sourcing your raw materials, and what did they cost as well? Tell us all about that.
My dad was a tree surgeon back then before we set it up as a limited company. His main job was a tree surgeon, so we had all the wood available to us through that.
Okay. That's look, I don't know, clever, lucky, or sustainable. Like, yeah. So did the idea
firewood if it wasn't made into another product? So now we have the mill. It's timber that would just get cut up, and you can have some beautiful like spalted beech and things like that, which makes lovely chopping boards that people would just put on the fire. You know, it's criminal to cut up such nice pieces of timber when you can make so much from it.
Oh, fascinating. And Holly, what about you? Where did you source your raw materials for your first products?
So first products was like Facebook Marketplace and charity shops and eBay. Mostly there.
And what were you using then, Holly? Was that, sorry, to understand, were you taking material from there and making cushions, or was that for your vintage clothing sale stuff?
Well, I think like the clothes and the fabric kind of came from the same places. So we used to go to all these like vintage like warehouse event things to source the clothing. And then the fabric was mainly from charity shops and Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah. And you've got a really, Holly, you've got a really big product line now that doesn't look like it's made from kind of you know, like vintage clothes or something. Is it? How have things changed? How have things changed over time?
I think if I see like if I come across something that's vintage and really cool, I will still make it into like a one-off piece and sell it like through Instagram or through the market. But mostly it is all products I can reproduce that I've designed myself.
Yeah. Okay. And can you tell us about that process? Because looking at your website, it looks like, and did you describe yourself as a textile designer at the beginning, Holly? What did you say?
I probably would now. I don't really know what to call myself.
Yeah. So like a surface pattern designer. I mean, they're all looking at your website. They're all your original designs, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you go from getting some vintage fabric and making some cushions to then having an entire range of, it looks like custom made textiles that then you turn into cushions? So can you just give us a flavour of that, how evolved over time?
So I think that started happening in about 2020. Got one of those iPads with the pens, and I just kind of messed about on that, and then it just kind of gone from there. I kind of make it up as I go along.
Okay, so you literally got an iPad with a marking so those are your cushions behind you, aren't they?
Yeah.
On the settee, yeah, because we've got some in the enterprise hub,
Yeah.
adorning the enterprise hub. So so these have come from you getting an iPad and a scribbly thing. What program were you using?
I do it all through Procreate now.
Yeah.
Photoshop.
Yeah. Okay. And then what happens? Tell us about your process. How does that go from there onto a cushion, or all of your range? And what were some of the challenges that you had doing that?
So it's hard. Took me a while to find a decent fabric printer. So I always make sure everyone's based in the UK, everything that I have to outsource.
Yeah.
And I try and get them as local to me as I can. So it's like I trial a few different manufacturers. I now found a really good one.
Yeah.
So I just use them. When it's ready, go and pick it up.
Yeah. Okay. And Charlotte, what about you? How did your range expand from, the early days, the reindeer? I think you mentioned another kind of festive item. How did it expand to all of these things that you've got on the website now?
We started taking orders for planters. What we tried to do, we've made it more so some items have used bought-in timber so we can replicate them. As we had, everything was unique at one point, so we only had like one of each item available. But we realised that we needed to be able to replicate things quickly, and so we could list them on a website and have 10 available instead of having a website where we only had one of each item. So we changed the direction of the business by incorporating the laser, which does allow you to mass produce. Everything's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And does the laser cut the wood for you then? Sorry to be stupid, Charlotte, but just explain what the laser does.
So it'll cut the wood up to a certain thickness. I think it's 6 mil it'll cut up to, and then it'll engrave onto any type of wood within the bed frame, which is 600 mil by 400.
Yeah. Okay. And we've got another question from Kimberly. Thanks so much. Do encourage people to put questions in the chat. So Kimberly is thanking you for your interesting responses. And she's also asking, how about packaging items? So this is something that product-based businesses that we see through the Enterprise Hub all individually have to go through that process, agonizing over what they use and how they pack things, especially if they're sending things out in the post. So how did you approach that, Holly, and how has it evolved over time? And like, what did it look like at the beginning? What does it look like now?
So I design all the packaging myself. I was like, for the first couple of years, I was printing it myself at home on my little printer.
What were you printing?
Like wraps for tea towels.
Okay.
And like, they call them belly bands, I think.
The things that go around the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
And yeah, obviously, like, you have your business cards printed and then like little tags. So like a couple of years ago, I started using a printer. It was based downstairs at my studio, Mark. Yeah. And then now, because I'm getting a bit more and I've changed the packaging and I needed them a different width or whatever, I outsource the packaging now, but I still design it all.
Okay, so what does that look like? When you say you outsource the packaging, just give me does that mean that you send your stuff to a fulfillment center, or?
I'll still do all that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the folding and trimming and finishing off is all still done by me, and then all the wrapping. Yeah.
Okay. So do you mean that you outsource the printing, Holly?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I've had a really long day. So I just need to brain check it. Yeah. Okay, so you've got somebody else printing like the belly bands or whatever,
Yeah.
and the labels and all of that kind of stuff, but you get those back and then you dress the products or
Yeah.
yeah, okay. And Charlotte, what about you? How do you approach packaging?
So mine's in different. I use all recycled packaging. So I have local businesses, friends, family that collect the bubble wrap from their orders, boxes, and I reuse them to keep my business as eco-friendly as possible. And it also keeps the cost down because I'm not having to pass the cost of packaging on to the customer.
Yeah. Does that in itself, is that a time-consuming task, or have you built up a network of people who are thinking about like feeding you their recycled packaging? How does it work,
So a
and how
lot of
did you
them,
get it set up?
so a lot of them I put on like local Facebook groups, if you've got any bubble wrap, because a lot of people buy it when they move house and they have no need for it. So I just go
Yeah.
and ask them, and then other people would now just message me and say, "Oh, I've got a bag full. Do you want to come and collect it?"
Yeah. And do you manage to do all of your packaging like that then, Charlotte?
The only things that I don't do are the large letter boxes
Yeah.
because they've got to be a specific measurement to get at that postage price. But all the others, I mean, I've got products now like tractors, planters that I post, like they go to Scotland a lot, but I've made them so they just fit into the postage dimensions to go at a set price. So the product's actually designed to fit in the box to send.
Okay. So that's something to bear in mind then. So you've taken the dimensions of the boxes that are up to a certain price
Yeah,
as the dimensions for your product.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you go over a certain price, like the cost difference is crazy.
Yeah.
Like 2 centimeters over, and then you've got in a whole other price bracket.
Yeah.
So we design products now that we know we're going to post out to fit into the specific measurements.
Yeah. Have you thought about stuff like that, Holly? Is that the same for you, the cost of packaging, or how does that influence your thinking and practice?
Yeah. So most of mine go as small parcels. So we have like specific boxes that fit the cushions in. Because then if it was a centimetre bigger, it would be classed as a medium, which would cost like nearly £6, I suppose.
Yeah.
So like we split them down so they still go as small parcels. But things like lampshades will always go as a medium as well. And sometimes it makes sense to like use a courier rather than Royal Mail because you get a bit more out of it, that kind of thing.
And just in terms of from the customer side of things, do you add postage and packaging, or is it like subsumed into the cost of the good? How is that presented to the customer, Holly?
I had it on mine.
Yeah.
So P&P is added on afterwards when they're placing the order, but I try and work it out on my website. So say if they're only ordering a tea towel, they'd only be paying like £2.50.
Yeah.
But if it's a cushion, it'd be like £4.95.
Yeah. What? Oh, sorry, Holly.
What?
Were you going to finish your sentence? I just.
Oh no, I already did.
You're all right. Okay, sorry. Charlotte, what about you? How do your customers experience the postage and packaging costs?
Yeah, so mine's an extra cost that's added on at checkout as well. But I've got different fees. So like I do some felt products which are quite light and go as a small parcel, so they're cheaper. So I've got them on at £2.95. And then for the bigger things are £3.90. And then because a lot of my things, I have a lot that go to Scotland, but in the Highlands, which I use Every as a courier because I find them cheaper, and they give us like discounts for sending multiple packages at a time and things. But they charge extra to go to certain postcodes. So I've also got a category for I think there's about 6 postcodes in the UK that's extra. So if they live in that postcode, then they'd have to pay the extra fees.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you. All right, we've got a question from Jacinta, I think. I hope I've said that right. And it's really great and a really big question about how is the product marketing done. So Charlotte, how did you start marketing your products at the beginning? How has that evolved over time, and what does your marketing look like?
A lot of it's social media, as it's free. I had Facebook page, Instagram. That's how I started it off. I mean, for me, the website's a new addition, as I found it was quite costly to set up a good website. But social media, it's all free. I do a lot. I don't know where I live. We've got like a local community group called Queensbury Village, so you can advertise in there once a week. Well, that can bring in a lot of orders for me, for people that will just come to my house and collect. I always say to people when they ask me, start a social media page, because your friends and family will also purchase through that and see your pictures and your products.
And just tell us a bit more about the Queensbury Village Facebook group and how you kind of inserted yourself into that. Did you just go straight in as a business and can I advertise my product? Just tell us a bit how you got into that.
They have it set, I think it's like every Thursday you're allowed one post, but I know there's other ones, there's like Handmade Crafts UK and things like that, which you can post once a day in there, which when you can post your products out, such a great target market. I think some of them have got like 75,000 people in the groups, which when it isn't costing you anything to put it in, it's great.
Yeah. And have you got sales through Handmade Crafts UK?
Yeah.
Okay.
I direct them to my website or Etsy page to place the orders, so it's secure for them. You know, I know some people are funny about paying direct by bank transfer, but or some people do it through PayPal, I think, as well, but I don't personally.
Okay, that's really interesting. So social media groups, particularly Facebook and this thing, Handmade Crafts UK, fantastic. Holly, what about you? How is your product marketing done? How is it done at the beginning and how has it evolved?
I think mine's always been Instagram mainly, just posting on that regularly and interacting with people that are interested. And then I also market it when I'm at markets as well.
Yeah.
Then people are seeing it then in the flesh. And then they get, that kind of thing.
I find that posting videos when I'm at markets, you know, like live videos and things, showing all the products out, draws in orders online as well whilst you're there. Because sometimes I don't think on pictures, they realise until they see it as a video. And then you'll also get people that come down to the market as they know that you're there, that might not have made the trip.
Yeah. I mean, social media is often, and getting social media profiles is often a really common thing that the enterprise team supports. And there is a business advisor called Isabel Miles, who does sessions on TikTok marketing and social media marketing. But can you give people a picture about, you know, if you've got an Instagram profile or a Facebook profile or both, how you got started, some tips about, you know, building a profile and building your skills on that, because often people will look at a finished profile that's already got a following and it's more, how did they get there? So Holly, what about you? How you mentioned Instagram, how did you get started? How did you build a profile? How do you use it?
Well, I think so. I made a separate one. So I've got my personal one, and then I've got the business Instagram. I think it started, I just was posting pictures of my artwork, and then if you go right to the bottom, I think you can kind of see it evolving to what it is now. Then it's like just posting things every day.
Yeah.
Replying to your comments. Just keeping it up, really. Keeping it fresh.
And when you say posting every day, what inspires you to post, or what do you post? What do you say something? Do you provide text? What's the kind of tone of what you're doing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think like I keep it light-hearted. If I've got something new coming out, I'll try and build up a bit of excitement for it. Like countdown to like when something's launching. Then telling people like what events we're doing over the weekend. Like saying what you're up to in a day as well. People like seeing that there's like a person behind the business, and it like you're pretty normal and just do what everyone else does.
Yeah. Okay. You sound relaxed about it, Holly, whereas it can be a real agonizing thing for people, like where they think about it a lot but then don't post. So what would what would your advice be about, just showing up, or do you just feel relaxed about it naturally?
Probably.
Yeah. Did you always feel that, or did you need something to get going?
I think I do, like when you talk on the Instagram stories, that took a bit of building up. Felt like I was selling my soul a bit, but once you've done it, and then it just isn't too bad.
Yeah. What was your first story about?
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah. But do you do them regularly now, and what would you do them about?
Yeah, like I've done a few today. So got some new products coming out in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was trying to build up a bit of excitement about that.
Yeah.
Then just like probably done a bit too many posts about that today.
No, that's brilliant. Really, really good to hear. And people, if you've got any questions about social media, because it tends to be a thing that people are wanting to do but sometimes struggle with, then pop it in the chat. Charlotte, what about you? What channel have you used most, and how did you get started on it?
I find Facebook's better for my business personally, but I think that might be a demographic of the age. Like I assume that you're more younger customers, whereas mine tend to be middle age onwards.
Yeah.
For a lot of the products. So I think that's just the target market of people.
Yeah. And how did you get going, Charlotte? And what do you post about? And is there a kind of story type function? What's it called on Facebook? Because is it short? No, what is it?
I think it's still a story, isn't it? But I mean, I'm not very comfortable talking. I'm still nervous about things like that. Like I'll post pictures, but I don't really like to go live or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's something I need to work on personally as well.
I don't like it.
Yeah. And so what do you post, Charlotte? And how often do you post? And what's the kind of tone of when you're posting? Have you found your voice on your profile?
I try to post different things all the time instead of spamming people like with the same thing, which I find some people they'll end up just clicking off or unfollowing because they get a bit fed up of the same thing all the time. So I try to vary it, and I tried to do about maybe 5 times a week posting different things and just see how it goes. It depends as well, because at busy times of year I'm busier, so I don't post as much. But sometimes I'll put posts on saying, "Oh, I'm really busy this week. Send me a message if you want to place any orders," which jumps people up because they think, "Oh, like they're so busy, I better get my orders in," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just post whatever I'm thinking. I try not to think too much about it.
And there's often with social media talk about like the algorithm and what the algorithm's doing, and if that's impacting reach and engagement and all of that kind of stuff. Have you got any thoughts about that, or what do you think about it, or how do you approach that? Holly, what about you on Instagram? Do you think about the algorithm, or do you just get on and do what you're doing?
There's not really much you can do about it these days. I think we were all dead frustrated with it like a year ago, because like when it was locked down, we were all doing really well on it. But then say something can go like back then you'd get like 100 likes dead easy on a little picture, and now it's like you get lucky to get 20.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
They want you to pay for the sponsored ads on Facebook
Yeah.
and Instagram, so they stop people seeing it until you pay, which I'm reluctant to do, but it just depends.
So is that impacting though on your sales, or are you seeing an impact on your sales with that less visibility?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it definitely doesn't help.
Yeah. And so are you thinking about advertising, or are you like resisting actually paying for adverts?
I find it's quite expensive, and they target different people, so you don't even know if who they're targeting is going to want to purchase your product. Personally, I'd rather go to a market and spend the £35 on a day's trading and giving, even if you just give out business cards that people take and they take home with them and the chance of looking on your website, whereas you can pay £35 and no one will click on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to markets, because actually you both mentioned markets, so it'll be interesting to come back to that. But I just want to pick up on a question from Kimberly. Again, thanks so much, Kimberly. So she's saying, great insight, really appreciating what you're saying, especially around designing the products based on designing the products based on postage costs. That is a really good insight. And then the new question is, how do you manage VAT and tax? It seems quite a daunting process. So yeah, talk us through accounts, tax, how you approach that. So Holly, what about you? First, can you tell us what your legal structure is, if that's all right? And then what your accounting looks like, and VAT if you do it.
So I have two separate businesses. So I rent a studio through my other business called Craft House, and that's a limited company. But that don't turn over enough money to be registered for VAT, so I don't really have to worry about that. And then Neighbourhood Freight, I'm still a sole trader, but still I've not hit the threshold yet, so I don't even have to bother with it just yet. But I have got an accountant. I just pay her a monthly rate, and she sorts out all my books and all my VAT returns and tax returns every year.
Yeah. And so from your end, Holly, what do you have to do? What does your accounting, because Kimberly's comment is it seems quite daunting. So is it daunting, or how could you undaunt it for her? What does it look like for you? What do you have to do?
Organised, it's not too bad, but I'm not, so that's why I've got an accountant. I just send her my receipts every month, but she's got software, which means I can just take a picture of it and then it just sends to her and she sorts it out.
Okay, so from your end, you're taking a picture of receipts. You're paying an accountant monthly.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything else?
I don't think so.
You got a business bank account, and the transactions go through a business bank account?
Oh yeah, I keep all the business transactions separate to my personal ones.
Yeah. And do you personally keep a record of your spending, like what's going in and out, or is that captured digitally through your
my accountant will know.
Okay, that's how I've always been with my businesses, because accounting isn't my strong point, but there's there's a software package that does it, and there's a business card, and like as things go in and out and somebody else sorts it out. Charlotte, what about you? What about your accounting, and what's your legal structure as well?
So I'm not VAT registered either. But I do all my accounts through QuickBooks. I've also got an accountant, but I pay for a monthly fee to do QuickBooks, and then I pay like a yearly fee to the accountant who just checks it all over before it goes to HMRC to make sure it's right. But mine's similar. I scan the receipts into QuickBooks and then it deducts them all off the banking, and I can send invoices because I do quite a lot to other crafters. So I invoice them through QuickBooks, and then once it gets paid into the bank account, I use Starling Bank, which is quite modern. It sends me like push notifications on my phone every time either me or my dad spend on the business card, or when people send me money, or like my phone contract, when it comes out, it'll tell me a few days before, or your bill's due, this standing order will be coming out on such and such a date. So I just tried to keep a track of how much is in there and how much we're spending.
Yeah, okay. I hope that helps, Kimberly. If you've got any more questions about those kind of technical things, and then how they're approached really pragmatically in real life, it can be really helpful to make it seem less daunting. I mean, how do you feel about that side of the business, the financial side of the business, Charlotte? You know, do you feel you've gone from feeling daunted or not sure how to do it, but now you're managing it? Just give us a flavour of that.
Well, I feel like in schools they don't teach you this kind of thing. So when I was about 19 when I was started as a director of the company. So my dad doesn't want to do the account side of it or the social media. So I was kind of chucked in at the deep end because nobody teaches you how to do it. So trying to navigate it and learn how to do it is quite a struggle. But definitely like YouTube videos. On YouTube, there's things to teach you how to do everything. It's great.
Yeah.
You know, watch, learn, ask people for help is a big thing. Don't be scared to ask. I now, if I've got an issue, I'll just ring the accountants and say, you know, look, I'm struggling with this. Could you help me? And end of the day, you're paying them for the help and the advice. So you definitely need to take it.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about you, Holly? Was it something that you felt comfortable with anyway, or something that you've kind of got to grips with? Yeah, give us a flavour of that.
I think I've never been that good with numbers anyway, and organising anything. So I did try it myself for the first year or two, and then I got my accountant about 2 years ago, maybe a year. And yeah, she's definitely worth what I pay her for. Like, she's been great. And then yeah, she is really good.
I think it's a peace of mind just knowing that it's being checked and it's right is worth them.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
But then again, if I am stuck, I'll ask for help. It's like all the market traders that we know as well, like they're all in the same boat, and if they know more than me or if I know more than them on something, you just kind of help each other out.
Yeah,
quite nice.
And just sticking on this theme around, you know, money and finance, a question that's often asked is around costings. Like how do you go about costing your products, and then so Holly, how do you go about costing your products? How does that work for you now?
So I still try and make as much as I can when I can, because obviously that's the cheapest way, and then you're not having to meet minimum orders with other manufacturers. So with cushions and coasters and everything, I can just make them as I need them. But if you are having to like buy stock in that's outsourced, it's probably worth meeting more than the minimum, because then the more you buy, the cheaper it is. It's like with fabric, it's worth trying to bulk it up and trying to buy it in advance. Even if like the cash flow's not there, you are likely to make it back in a couple of days anyway. So just got to take the risks, really.
Yeah. And how did you go about pricing your cushions? Did you, for example, look at other businesses that were selling cushions and look at what the market was doing, or did you start with what does one cushion cost me to make, and therefore what margin can I make on that? Just give us or was it a combination of those things? Talk people through how you approached it.
I think so. The fabric will always cost the same. Then obviously you've got to put your time in. So I think, and then obviously you're trying to make as many as you can within your time frame. So you've got to factor all that in, and then you've also got to factor in if anyone ever wants to buy it wholesale. So then you've got to make sure you're making money, and whoever's buying it wholesale off you is making money, but then you don't want to overcharge. So you don't, but you still need to keep the RRP at the same price. So you've
RRP, do you want to tell people what RRP stands for? Is it recommended retail price?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I just see it written down. I know what it means.
And what about you, Charlotte? How do you go about approaching pricing?
So I factor in how much the material's costing me, and a big one for me is the time that it's going to take to make it. As a handmade, you know, some items could take 10 minutes and others could be hours and hours. So you've got to factor in your prices and make sure you're selling enough and making enough to pay yourself a wage. you've got to factor in your costings. For me, like the lasers, the electric, the big electric cost rises have meant my products have had to go up because it's costing me more to run the machines.
Yeah. And I think, am I right in saying that you both sell direct to customers, but also, Holly, you just mentioned wholesale, and Charlotte, did you say as well that you sell to crafters?
I sell like laser cut products and things like that to crafters, so I do them cheaper. And obviously, the more you buy, the cheaper they become, because it's easier for me to run big batches than it is to run like 5 off.
Yeah.
So I have different prices for wholesale and retail.
And how did you get that side of things off the ground? Because the picture I've got, I think for both of you, is did you both start on market stalls when you sold your first product? Yeah. So Charlotte, how did you go from market stall to then selling to crafters? What was that journey?
Talking to people on the markets. I found a lot of my business, or they'll say to you, oh, well, I'm having this made for such, and if you know your costings, you'll be able to say, oh, well, I can make you that for 10p cheaper, but they're ordering 1,000 at a time. So they think, oh, I've got a bargain, I'm getting each item 10p cheaper, but you're still making enough money. So you can go to markets and sell your retail products, but also pick up contacts for the wholesale side of it as well.
Okay, and that's brilliant. Thanks. Holly, what about you? How did you go from selling direct to customers to then doing the wholesale work that you're doing?
So again, it's like just talking to people and interacting, like maybe messaging a shop on Instagram or ringing them up or sending a big email with all your prices and seeing if they're interested. And then we just grew it. We just did a trade show in London in January. And then we took on another few stockists there, because then they can come and see it and meet you and then understand like how you work and all your processes. So I think that's important as well.
And what was the trade show, Holly? And was it expensive? How did you get onto it? That kind of thing.
Yes, it was top draw at the Olympias something, I don't know what it was. It was expensive. We were in like the launchpad bit, which is for the new businesses.
Yeah.
Which I think, because people know it's there, they'll come and see it and see what's new, and stockists will want something new that other people might not have seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who were the stockists? Like big companies, independent companies, and how did you find it being there and interacting with all of those? Were they buyers that come and talk to you? Yeah, just give people a flavour of what that experience was like.
From all over the place come really, but I think because we're still quite small and it's still handmade, quite a lot of it, and we're not ordering like thousands of units at a time. The price points are still quite high for people ordering wholesale, so mostly it's independents that we supply.
Okay.
I think like big companies don't really want to pay for it and don't really care where it's come from a lot of the time. But then it's nice to chat with like the little retailers, building up like a kind of relationship with them. And then it was nice because some of the stockists that we've had for a year actually came to the show and we met them in real life as well, which was nice for both of us, really.
Yeah. And you both mentioned that you started working on markets, and you were at the market just before Christmas, the first University of Huddersfield Christmas market. So just Charlotte, tell us about your first market and what you needed for it, and how your store and the dressing of your store has changed, over time.
So my first market, it was like like an organised one, each town kind of has one, and it was set up market stall. So other than my stock, I didn't have to take anything, which is great when you don't have. But now I do markets where I take my own gazebo. So I've got a 3 metre by 3 metre gazebo, and then I take my own tables, which is great because you can basically, it's like having your own shop. You can set it up how you want. I use a lot of grid wall. So I hang it around the edge of the gazebo, then I put some at the front just to utilise all the space and get as many products in as possible. because you're paying a set fee for your pitch. So the more you can get in there, the more chance you've got of selling it.
How do you set up a gazebo? Do you set up a gazebo by yourself? Because they're quite big, aren't they? They're quite heavy, or does somebody help you do that?
So if my dad's coming, we take the big heavy one, but if it's just me, we've got a lighter weight one that fits into a car. Our big industrial one weighs a ton. It's ridiculous. I couldn't even lift it.
And what about you, Holly? What was your first stall like? What did you need for it? How did you set it up, and how have things changed over time?
So I think my first ever stall was this vintage one in Sheffield at the lead mill. But they supplied a table. I just had to take my own rails and display stuff, really. But then I started doing makers markets in Manchester, and they supplied you with a gazebo and a table. And then you just kind of bring your displays. But it's good to, like, so say if you have like wooden crates, you can store your stuff in there, get it all out, and then use that as a display. You can get like stretchy tablecloths, which are good. Don't need ironing.
Yeah. I use them to hide stock underneath tables. It covers it all up.
They're good. Get it in a dark colour, not as many stains when it's muddy. Get like a little banner to put at the front. We take, because I sell a lot of lamps, we take our own power, so we've got electricity. But yeah, just kind of build it up the more regular you do them, really. Make sure it's heavy duty though in the bad weather.
Yeah, the wind.
Oh yeah.
Holly, from memory, did you get support as well through an enterprise grant for some of the stuff on your stuff?
That's still going strong, that, still use it.
What did you get, and how did it help you?
I bought some metal racks that I use as shelves for cushions.
Yeah.
They're still going.
Yeah.
I think I bought a banner, which I still use. And then I think you just gave me some money to get some business cards as well.
Yeah.
But they've
Yeah. So for people who've never joined a session before, one of the ways that the enterprise team supports clients, students and graduates of the university is through something called Enterprise Grant. So you can get support to apply for Enterprise Grant, and that might be to do a little bit of test trading, to get resources to set up a market stall, or even earlier stage than that. It can even be to go to an event or training or some networking or something like that that will help you make a move towards taking action. So if you don't know about Enterprise Grant, then come along to an information session that we hold at the Enterprise Hub and find out more about that. So we've got 10 minutes left before we close. So I think I'm going to go to kind of like some broad, maybe there might be some, please chuck any last questions in the chat. But, oh yeah, great. Jacinta sent one. How long was it before you started realizing profits? What a great question. Are there some months the business made losses initially or even now? Right, fantastic. So, Holly, how long was it before you made a profit? Are some months trickier than others?
Don't really know how much profit's in there, just because I'm not very good with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so January is usually a slow month. You've got to spend from about September. You've got to start thinking about Christmas, which is always the busiest time. So summer's usually quite an expensive few months, just trying to build up stock, because you got the lead times as well when you're outsourcing things. Say if your lead times are like 6 weeks, you got to think, when do you need it for, and how early do you have to buy it?
If you don't think in profit though, Holly, how do you think? Are you like taking a wage from the business? Because I think when we first met, you were working. You were you were working, and then you've transitioned into the neighbourhood threat.
Yeah.
Are you full time in the neighbourhood threat now?
Yeah, I think I've done it full time since about September 2021.
So do you kind of, when you, so Kimberly's asking a clarifying question as well.
Right.
So she's saying you spoke earlier about paying yourself a salary. How do you calculate that? Do you have to substitute with a part-time job? So yeah, Holly, just give people that flavour of, you were working, I think, pretty much full-time when we met, and now you're full-time neighbourhood threat. So when did you start paying yourself? Yeah. Is that how you think of the profit in the business, essentially, as you're able to take a wage out of it that supports you?
Oh yeah, I think I probably pay myself the profits, and I've got someone who works for me now twice a week.
Yeah.
So obviously I got to think of her wage before I think of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of pay yourself as and when you can, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Charlotte, what about you? How do you approach these things? So Jacinta was asking about how long was it before you started realizing profits, and Kimberly's also asking, do you pay yourself a salary? How do you calculate that?
So last year was our first year as a limited company, so we did come out with a profit, which for a startup business is quite good. But we already had tools and things like that. Like the sawmill isn't owned by the business; it's owned personally. So we pay when we use the sawmill, we pay ourselves like a wage to use that because it doesn't belong to the business. And last year I had a part-time job as well, so I didn't take a wage out of the business. But starting from April into this financial year, I now take a wage. I still do a few odd hours at my old job to cover holidays and things, but now I take just like a set amount each week as like a salary.
And do you think that you'll continue with your part-time work, or does the future look like going full-time with the product business?
Going full-time. Yeah, my hours are getting less and less at my other job.
Yeah. And Holly, you just mentioned quite a big thing actually, which was like paying somebody a couple of times a week to come in and do stuff. So, when did that happen? What are they doing for you? How are you managing that?
So she's called Liz. I took her on maybe September last year. But yeah, so it was hard trying to find somebody because obviously I needed someone who was fast and who could use the industrial machines.
Yeah.
So I interviewed a few people, and then she was just the best one, really. And she's self-employed as well.
Yeah.
So because I'm still a sole trader, she'll invoice me for her hours. So like she's providing me a service, really. So that's how we kind of get around that.
Okay. So, and she's doing the machining for you, Holly, is that right?
Well, just kind of split it now.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. If there's any questions, there's 5 minutes left in this meeting. I'm going to go to a kind of like more holistic question about what have the biggest challenges been for you in starting and then developing a product-based business. So Holly, what about you? What's been really tricky? Biggest challenge for you?
So in 2020, towards Christmas, I think a lot of Brexit laws came in and we couldn't source a lot of the materials. So I used to print all my own mugs, but then I couldn't source the blank ceramics. I couldn't source any of the coaster blanks. So I've had to go through about 5 suppliers for them. My old supplier went out of business because they couldn't import the materials anymore. And then what was the question?
Yeah, biggest challenge. I mean, that's massive, isn't it? It's like totally out of your control as well. How did you manage that?
I think that's when I kind of switched to trying to get things locally made. So I couldn't print my own mugs, but then the blanks were coming from China.
Yeah.
So then I started using a factory in Stoke.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and a half down the road. They're good.
Yeah.
And that's all sustainably made, not many air miles on it.
Yeah.
And then in COVID, we couldn't trade at markets. And you have to rely on online. And then now it's all the energy bills and shops going out of business and having to shut quite a bit. And then all our raw materials going up in price, then you've got to be careful that you don't outprice yourself out the market, because you've got to put your own prices up. And then people's spending habits are changing as well, because people aren't wanting to spend the money, so you've got to be wary of that. And yeah, there's been a lot of challenges.
Yeah, it's a really challenging trading environment, isn't it? Charlotte, what about you? What have your biggest challenges been in either setting up or developing?
Yeah, I agree with Holly. Like the financial at the minute, you know, the rising energy costs, everything's costing us more to make. I mean, wood since COVID has gone, it's like tripled in price, because the cost of importing it into the country for us then to buy it off of the timber traders, and you know, and like you say about, you end up pricing yourself out at market if you're not careful. And because people have got less money at the minute, I've designed products like that are cheaper, because people might buy 3 items that add up to £10, but they might and ah over something that's £10. You know, they think they're getting more for their money if they get things that are cheaper.
Yeah.
People's mindset has completely changed. I noticed on the market since, you know, when they announced in summer about all the energy costs rising and things, people within a weekend, they went from spending £20 to not wanting to spend anything. You know, people's mindset completely changed because they were worried about what money they'd have.
And what skills do you feel like you've needed to cope with all of this and to achieve what you've done so far? What skills do you think have been important to you, Charlotte, first?
Perseverance, keep going, even if you get knocked down, or you might design something that doesn't sell well, you know, you move on and think of something else. Don't let yourself get down about it. You know, always better things that'll come. I mean, this year at Christmas, I had a great Christmas season. Now it's quite quiet, but it's understandable. You know, it's start of the year, and then it'll start picking up again. So enjoy the time when you're a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
You know, take that bit of time for yourself after being absolutely manic. Have a bit of time and then get back to it. Design new products in your quiet time as well. That's a great thing. I'm now on designing Christmas for next year. New ideas.
Yeah, good advice. And Holly, what about you? What skills have you needed to cope with all of the things and achieve what you've done?
I think trying to just keep pushing yourself, trying to keep all your product range fresh. Make sure you're not just churning out the same thing all over, like over and over. So say if everyone's got one of your designs, still make it in something else. I think that's it. And then just kind of not letting it phase you as much, because I think,
Okay. Well, thank you both so much, Holly and Charlotte, for sharing your story. I found it really, really interesting, and thank you for your questions as well. People who put questions in the chat. It was really good to be able to feed those in and get Holly and Charlotte to be able to answer those. So there'll be another workshop, same time, 2 weeks from now, 6:30. I don't know what the date is. I can't figure that out, but 2 weeks from now anyway, everybody. And until then, thank you so much. So that's the end. Kimberly says, thank you so much. Good luck with your businesses in the future. And yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Charlotte and Holly. Really appreciate your time, and see you next time, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, am I meant to go as well?